lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes in with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host. You're stuck with me. That's it. We are here, and it is Monday night. Your Monday is now behind you for the most part, other than the show, of course, and whatever else you might have planned for the evening. But I hope you guys had a great day and made it through okay. I did. I'm here. I made it. It's like Monday's that big hurdle at the beginning of every week. It's like, oh. But once you get past it, you know you're going to be okay. Tuesday is kind of like, eh. And then Wednesday is encouraging because then it's downhill. So I feel your pain. I feel where you guys are at. It's that way for all of us to some degree or another. Got to get the cat hair off my mic. I just gave Anubis a bath. Oh my God, he looked like a little string bean once his hair's all wetted down. He doesn't like baths at all. That cat he got into something stinky outside. It was horrible. It came in and he smelled like he rubbed into something's butt, and it was just horrible. It's like, oh my God. So he got an emergency bath, and it smells great now, but he was pretty bummed out for a good couple hours. That was on, that was on yesterday. That was Sunday. Yeah. So he's all happy and fluffy again today, but he managed to rub his body everywhere. So I don't know. It's what cats do, but he smells good now, which is good. When they get into stuff, man, it's horrible because they don't know. It's like they don't know they stink. They have no clue. It's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being all funny? I'm just trying to get some love here. It's like, oh my God, you smell like something's butt. Get away from me. So he went right in the tub with a lot of shampoo and good intentions. So we got him all straightened out. He's much better now. But welcome, everybody, to the show. This is the Night Terrors. It's our shorter version of the Paranormal Portal shows, which are the primary shows are on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. But we do these Night Terrors on the other nights just to, because I love doing the shows. I love being out there with you guys and touching base with you and being a part of your week every day of the week. In fact, I'm a glutton for attention, so that's what I'm doing here. So I hope you guys enjoy these shows, and there is no commercial break, so that's always a good thing. But yeah, it's been a good day. So there we have it. Did Don come in? I see Don. Is the Eighth Art Archives in here? No, I don't see him. Oh, he is. Yeah, Don did show up. Okay. Well, how you doing, Don? Good to see you, brother. I'll try my best to keep the ship rolling here without you, but I'm glad you made it into the chat. Got a good show lined up for you tonight, as always, so I hope we're all good to go. The phone lines will be open throughout the course of the show. If you have something paranormal you'd like to share, please do. And if you've got a bunch of things you'd like to share or just some paranormal stuff you'd like to share and you wouldn't mind being a guest on the podcast, let me know. I'm getting more and more emails from people that have some stories to tell, and it's pretty exciting, but it's, just the challenge of making schedules work and stuff. But I really appreciate all of you that have stepped up and said, hey, I'd like to be a guest. I got some things I want to share. And so it's awesome because talking with you guys and going through what you've experienced and, having the opportunity to ask questions and get clarification on points. And it's really cool. I really enjoyed that part of the podcast and a part of the live shows too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love talking with you guys when you call in. So the call in is always available, but if you want to be a guest, email us at paranormalportal@gmail.com. The call-in number for calling into the live show is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. So those are your opportunities, your passports for fun here on the Paranormal Portal. And so definitely use them. Reach out and be a part of our adventure. So I guess that's all I got on the front end of this. So without further ado, I guess we can get into it. I hope you're all ready because it's time for bed. All right, that means we're it. That's it. Officially, we're on. We're rolling, and I guess we're underway. So, do you guys want to hear the jerkiest email lately? I, it's just the tone of the email is just so demanding. I think it's fine that people don't always agree with whatever choices I may make for a show, but it always comes with that level of threatening, like and so we're gonna read to you today's email of fun. And this was sent to me by a gentleman who said this: "You're going to start losing your audience because of these wackos you have on your show. Sincerely," and then he signed it. I'm like, what the hell? Apparently this individual thinks that I should tailor my shows specifically to their needs. Now, here's the thing. I appreciate that people have opinions, and I appreciate that I'm not always going to do what's in your best opinion, what you think should happen. However, I don't know why people feel so compelled to just whip out the dick card. It's like, I'm going to be a dick, and I'm not, I am actually kind of slamming this guy. And, it's not my intent to chastise somebody for sharing their opinion, but it's just such a horrible thing to say. And here's the thing, it's, and this is kind of my response is, look, it's kind of like you're listening to the radio. You don't like everything on every song that comes on. You don't. Some of the songs you're going to turn up because it's like, yeah, this is my jam. Other songs you're going to turn down because it's all right, but it's, not really getting you too hyped. And then there's some songs that come on that make you just want to change the channel for a little while. And that's like any show. I mean, you're going to have a variety of topics. You're going to have a variety of things that are covered. I mean, hell, I was an X-Files maniac back in the day, but there were some X-Files that I thought, God, that really sucked. But I didn't write the station and tell them to quit playing that stuff or they're going to lose their audience. It's just like, well, some things didn't appeal to me. Other things did. And I just find it so hard to believe that some people are so in love with their own opinion that they're gonna write in and say something like that. It was just horrible. I was like, wow. I responded respectfully, and I don't disagree that not everything is going to appeal with everybody, and I understand that. But at the same time, I would hope that if you're not grooving on a specific show, cool. Then that's human nature. We're gonna like some of the same things, and we're not gonna like some of the same things. That's cool. But when people want to flex and just get all coming from this this moral high ground or whatever, I don't understand. So that's today's email that's rubbed me all wrong. I don't mean to come across as a jerk, but it's like, if you're going to put that out there, you got to get ready to for the boomerang on that, because it's like people need to be accountable for their bad behavior. And, I mean, I'm sure people will make me accountable and have made me accountable when I've been a dick. So, it's just a quid pro quo, if you will. So anyway, I wanted to share that with you guys because that's that's just the way it rolls sometimes. We're never going to appeal to everybody, but just understand. I put out the shows that I do because we have an incredibly diverse audience. We have an incredibly diverse set of interests that are watching the Paranormal Portal, and it can't always just be Bigfoot, ghosts, and UFOs, the big three. There just isn't, if I was just doing those shows over and over and over, I think that, we would probably run out of people willing to tune in, because there's a lot of shows out there that are doing those things probably better than I am. So I like having a real diverse field that we cover, because we cover the paranormal, and the paranormal is a huge field. It's not just Bigfoot. It's not just ghosts. It's not just UFOs. It's all of those and so much more. So that's kind of my thinking on it, but you guys will have to let me know what you think. If you think that that the quality is going downhill, let me know. I mean, I certainly don't want to alienate our listeners ever, but at the same time, some of that's just got to be expected. You're not going to dig every show. That's just the way it goes, especially with the number of shows we put out. So my 2 cents, take it or leave it, but let me know if you got an opinion on that. I'd love to hear from you. Email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I did ask for the opinion, so I won't I won't chastise anybody else if they write in their opinion, because I'm asking you what you guys think. If you guys agree that we're not giving you the shows that you need, let us know. But at the same time, I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. I don't mean to digress down a big rabbit hole on it, but just kind of curious. I don't understand people feeling, like they're just entitled to tell you how to run your ship. So that's it. All right, let's get to the stories. The first one tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is coming from Illinois, and it's not too long. It's a pretty short one. It says, it was a warm summer day in July 2007, and it first started. I was watching television when I felt someone bump into my bed. I looked around and didn't see anything, and I didn't think any more about it. Wait a minute. No, I read this one last night. I did it again. I sabotaged myself again. God bless it. All right. I'm opening up some brand new ones that I know I haven't read before. All right, you can email me about that. You better get a little more better prepared before the shows. And you'd be right. I could hardly disagree with you. All right, let's get to some brand new stories. Oh, God. All right, this one's coming from Ohio. Recently, we investigated... No, I'm not reading this one. This is one of those researcher ones. I can't do those. They read like logbooks, not like stories. All right, this one's from California. My best friend was expecting her first child in 4 months. One evening, she invited me over for dinner, and I hadn't seen her new place yet. So I went. It was a cute little 2-bedroom, and a baby furniture she had picked was a collection of antiques from all over. The dark cherry wood was polished up to a high sheen, so she was really proud of her choices. The antique rocker was a gift from her mother, and her mother had found it in an estate sale. The person who owned the rocker had passed away a year earlier, and her adult children didn't want to keep it, so Robbie wasn't a believer in things being haunted, so she happily accepted the gift. Well, it sat in a corner in the living room, and its ornate carved surface made it the centerpiece of the room. She ran over and sat in it, explaining how she would rock her baby and look out the big window, and her living room window was facing a beautiful canyon, and this was the perfect spot for the rocker. We were distracted by the timer that told us that the meal was ready, and we went into the kitchen to prepare our plates, and I think we were gone about 10 minutes, and when we re-entered the living room, crossing the room to go to the small dining room, we noticed that the rocker was in motion. Well, we placed our plates down on the small dining room table and re-entered the living room, and when we got back out there, the chair wasn't rocking any longer. Well, thinking it might be caused by the living room window, Robbie checked it but found it to be closed and locked tight. We stood there trying to figure out how that big heavy rocker could move without some type of rational explanation. We laughed it off as coincidence until the hairs started to rise on my arms and neck. Uh-oh, I didn't want to freak out Robbie, but I could see a tiny elderly woman starting to appear in the chair, and she smiled at me. She leaned forward, pushing off with her legs hidden beneath a long skirt. The rocking chair started to move back and forth, and Robbie said, "What the?" Well, she knows me real well, and as soon as she looked into my eyes, she knew I was watching someone in her new chair. I opened my mouth to explain, but Robbie let out a yell and ran to the front door, hollering the whole way. She ripped open the door and ran to the front of her complex. By the time I caught up, Robbie was crying, and I tried to calm her down and tell her it was just a little old lady, probably the little old lady who had enjoyed the chair in life, but she didn't want to hear it. Robbie begged me to call her mother and come take the chair. Long story short, the chair was removed, and Robbie bought a brand new rocker, and we never talked about it again. Some people can't handle a harmless haunting, am I right? Yeah, but I don't blame that mom to be, though. You're going to bring a baby into the world, and it looks like a sweet little old lady, but is it? I mean, can you be sure? Can you be sure it's really an old lady? I don't know. I kind of side with the mom on this one because you just don't want to take chances. You don't want to, with all of the things, and all the legends around the paranormal and babies, it's just like, do you really want to roll that dice? I think I agree. I think getting rid of it, I don't know. If it's not for a small baby, then what the hell, keep it, because it's kind of cool, I think, if it is indeed an old lady and she's just hanging out, rocking, and looking out the window. But if it's not, then you got a lot of things to deal with, and those problems only compound. So I would err on the side of caution too if it was me that had a haunted rocker that started rocking, and some sensitive person said they saw an old lady sitting there smiling. That's that's a little too much gambling. I think it's not the kind of thing you want to do it wrong. You don't want to bring a small child into a haunted situation. I mean, more than likely it'd probably be fine, but what if it's not? You know? Okay, we're going back to another sleep paralysis story, and this says, have you ever heard of the old hag syndrome? And if you're not familiar with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the traditional name, the old name for what is known as sleep paralysis. And not to state that it can't be a paranormal thing. I believe it can be and is, but I think there's also a medical state that mimics that to a large degree, and it's just simply a clinical issue where there's a disconnect between the body and the mind, and there's a chemical that stays in the bloodstream, keeping you kind of frozen while you sleep. So I don't know, but let's see what this one says. Have you heard of the old hag syndrome? Some professionals call it sleep paralysis, and perhaps it is. The old myth is that a traveling spirit in the shape of an old hag will pass through your house on some given night and sit on your chest and keep you from moving or breathing. Well, this happened to me even before I knew about any of this. I was around 20 years of age, and I had to move back to my folks' house for a while as I broke up with the girl I was living with in the year of 1980. And it was spring of the year, and I was stressed out, but went to bed and enjoyed listening to some of my mystery theater on the radio. Oh, that was the story my grandmother used to listen to. Huh, that was it. Sorry, I hadn't. I've been struggling to remember that name for so long. My grandmother always used to listen to a radio show, and it would be her old radio would just be whistling and humming with this. She lived out in the woods, and so her reception wasn't that great. But it was one of the fond memories of my childhood is hearing her radio kind of screaming and whistling as it was getting interference on the radio. But then she'd be listening to mystery theater, and usually she'd be falling asleep during it and stuff, but it was just kind of one of those memories. So it's kind of neat. I've been in the back of my mind for weeks now trying to remember what that show was, and here it is. So it's Mystery Theater. So I was listening to Mystery Theater on the radio when I went to bed, and I had my old bedroom back. Across the hall was my other bedroom for a time, and my folks' bedroom was around the corner, and they were in bed as well, for they had to get up for work, and I was laid off of my job, so I could sleep in. I fell asleep listening to my radio show while staring at my right guard deodorant can in the streetlight coming in through the window, and the shades were pulled. Yet there was some light that still filtered in. I fell asleep at some point, and my radio went off after the hour timer, and that is when I got my visitor. I awoke at around 3 in the morning and noticed a red light flashing out the window. And to this day, I'm not sure what that was. But now I was awake. I sat up and saw my door open enough to see into my other bedroom. And what I saw was evil and scary. There was just enough light to slightly lighten up the room, but in the middle was a deep, black, swirling cloud. And to me, that is what it appeared. Just swirling in a circle, and it felt real, and it had a consciousness. And then I saw two small red eyes peer out from the middle of it. Oh, that's creepy as hell. I just stared at it, and it felt the fear in me rush so fast as it rushed so fast in my direction. It took me by surprise. It knocked me back in bed, and I felt this heavy weight on my chest, like something was sitting on me, holding me down. I couldn't breathe, scream, or move or anything. It had me completely paralyzed, what seemed for a long time. I tried to wrestle with it, but it got nowhere. And when I screamed for my dad, it just came off like a soft muffle that no one could hear. I could turn my head slightly and see my clock, and saw the time slipping away during my battle with this old hag. Suddenly, it was gone. I could breathe, and I sat up and could feel myself breathing heavy. And I was dripping with sweat. This was for real, I thought. What was it? Yeah, I did not see it on me, just felt the pressure in its presence. And then I looked at the door again and saw the swirling black, the mist back in the other bedroom. And then round two happened. Oh, then round two happened. Okay. It rushed at me again, and it went through the same scary event, and this went on for a while, and then it let off. But before I could get out of bed, I was dead tired, but I knew I was awake. The third time happened as well, and most of the night had passed, and I did manage to turn the radio on again for an hour between events, and when the last one occurred, it left for good. Soon after, I just stared into space, trying to calm down and get a grasp on what just happened. My dad soon got up and get ready for work, and the sun was just coming up. I felt it was safe to get some sleep and noticed that the can of deodorant was now on the floor. Something was in my room. The radio was just turning off, and I could still feel the dampness of sweat on the sheets. Well, I went to sleep, and when I got up around noon, I told my mom of this and said I would never sleep in that room again. Well, she thought I was being silly and had just had a bad dream. I do not have, nor have I ever had a dream like that. That was real. It was years later when I read the book Communion about alien intervention, and the author's experience told of aliens coming into his house and could not move, much like my experience. But with the alien encounter, you usually don't remember what they do to you when they take you, and I had to wonder if that had happened to me. It was explained so closely to my experience. I was considering hypnosis, but never did, and then a couple of years later, I heard of professionals calling it sleep paralysis. You're caught in between sleeping and awake stage, and you're awake, yet you can't move, and it feels like the old hag syndrome. This may be, but I believe mine was real. I do believe in entities, and they do roam. They just passed my way that night, and some people have reoccurrences over their lifetime, and I have never experienced it since, and God willing, I never will. It was my worst experience, or my worst nightmare, and I thought I was going to die that night. That's really peculiar because it kept coming back. That's not very common. Generally, it's a one-off struggle, and then if you manage not to succumb to it, then it's kind of over for the night. But the fact that he was able to witness it in the other room, still there, and then coming at him again, that's a very peculiar experience. That's kind of a new experience. I don't think I've heard of that before. But terrible stuff. This one's coming from Iowa. Let's see what's going on in Iowa, other than the election stuff. I keep feeling as though I'm being watched. Not just that, even. I'm an empath, and as one, I've also been feeling some things, emotions, even as I type this. I believe it may very well be a ghost, and it started sometime a few months back when I actually started picking up on this. At night, if my shoulder were exposed, I would feel as though there was a head on my shoulder. I sleep alone, and there's no pet at my side, no mutual lover at my side, just me. I can't see this ghost naturally because that really isn't really my area. My area is being tuned in with things such as emotions and auras. And just yesterday, I read that empaths tend to be able to notice the dead, and I'm not sure how else to put it, but it makes sense to me. This ghost seems to leave me alone when I'm in class, but when I'm home, I tend to notice it easier. Right now, it seems anxious. It doesn't seem to want to harm me, and I sometimes wonder if it's just looking for comfort. I'm not sure what to do about it. I don't particularly feel threatened. In fact, I'm actually quite calm about it. It hasn't said anything that I heard, so I know truly nothing about it. I don't know if it's my dog that passed when I was 12. I don't know its gender. I don't like calling it an it. It just seems to make it sound like it's a nuisance. For the most part, I would just like to know how I can talk to it. Perhaps see it. For the most part, all this ghost has done is give me its emotions and lay its head on my shoulder. I'd like mature options and perhaps some guidance on this. If I was just dealing with a living person, this would be easier on me, but I can't truly have a conversation with the dead and discuss what's going on with them. Thank you for your time. That's interesting. And, that would be the hard part, I guess, is still the unknown. You know something's there, you know what you're feeling, and to be unable to do anything about it. That would be horrid. Very much so. Oh, okay. Oh, yep. Is Justin in here? I don't know. Is Justin Good Earth in here? In the chat, guys? I guess I could look at the participants. I got to see because it looks like it actually worked this time. I did get a MP4 file from him. So, Justin, if you're out there listening or whatever, yeah, it looks like it worked. I did get it, and we can probably certainly go over that on Friday. I'll take a look at it after the show, and we'll look through it, and yeah, that would be kind of cool. Okay, he was. Okay, well, it did work. It worked. I got something. At least it says I got something. I can't view it now, but I'll look at it after the show and respond to your email then. So I appreciate that. Thank you. But being an empath, that's kind of the hard part, is that there's not really a communication built into it other than emotions. It's just, and for those of you who may not know, empathy is just the ability to tune into vibes, to moods, to energies. Like as I understand it, you can walk into a room and just feel when something's wrong with somebody, and you can kind of tune in on it, zero in on it, and go, hey, what's going on with you? So, but there's a lot that it doesn't offer, at least for most empaths. It's just an awareness. And that can be a good thing. It's not a bad thing at all. In fact, I believe, a very powerful gift to have, because, the gift of empathy is to know how other people feel. And I think that, most empaths are some of the nicest people you'd ever want to meet, because they know how it feels to be, if someone is mistreated, and they would never want to wish that on anybody. So empaths are generally some of the most pleasant people in the world, because, even if they were a jerk for you, they'd have to deal with how that felt. So they could treat somebody poorly, but they'd be dealing with the emotions of that person as well. So normally they are very gentle, loving souls and try to be very kind and nice. So that's my 2 cents on that. So this next story, so that was that one. That's the one I just read. Close it. Let's open a new one here. And this is coming from Kansas. Oh, you're welcome, D. What are you thanking me for? Thanks, Brent. I appreciate that, but I don't know what you're thanking me for. Empathy. Talk about it all day at school. Going to be a peer specialist. Yeah, empathy is important. I think that knowing how other people. Now, here the empathy is also a double-edged sword, because a lot of time the empath will have to feel everyone's emotions It's not easy to shield from it. It's like you've got to feel the pain and you've got to deal with people's problems. And you want to help people with their problems just in a lot of ways, just so that it will help them not to hurt. And by helping them not to hurt, you're helping yourself not to feel their pain. And so, it's kind of a double-edged sword. They're great helpers. They're very compassionate people, but they are, they do have to bear a lot whenever they're around people. So it's almost a curse, really. Let's read the one from Kansas here. This story is about a young man I met many, many years ago. Life goes from bad to worse when one studies the black arts. No, I'm not talking about myself. I guess I need to start at the beginning. Lawrence was just 19. In his early years, he ran with the goth crowd, and one unfortunate day, he took it a step further. It was the day he decided to practice witchcraft. Yeah, I wish they wouldn't use that term because that's really not the same as a dark practice. But he says it gets worse. The study of witchcraft took him into Satanism. Yes, you read that right. This 19-year-old man, he worships Satan. I tried to help him walk away, but he was trapped. Trapped by the beliefs he could get all he ever wanted in life by submitting to the power of the Dark Lord. Is it Voldemort? Sorry. He was so fast. I'm going to probably cause myself all kinds of problems. I'm sitting here mocking that. Sorry, I couldn't help it. It was totally a Voldemort line. He was so fascinated by the ritualistic ceremonies that he didn't see it coming. The depression, the endless desire for sleep. After all, none of the dreams were coming through. The potions weren't helping, the drug and alcohol parties, the other stuff that I won't bring up here. He was lost and he didn't want my help. All I could do was watch, wait, and pray for his soul. About a year and a half later, I got a call from a family friend. It wasn't good news. Lawrence had committed suicide. And could I come to the cemetery for the funeral and then the burial? And I said I'd catch the next flight out. My heart was heavy for this boy and for his family. Everybody needs to think long and hard about how their actions have a cause and effect, and suicide affects the family members and friends for the rest of their days. I was heartbroken and angry all at the same time. When I flew in, a relative of Lawrence's picked me up. Her eyes were red, rimmed from weeping, and there wasn't a thing I could do to make it better. When we got to the cemetery, it was an early afternoon, and the service was scheduled for 3 p.m. The parish priest was already there, and he was looking over some notes as we walked up. At the time we arrived, and people surrounded the coffin of this boy/man, I looked into the haunted faces of those he left behind, and I was so angry with Lawrence and prayed that he made peace with God before he took his own life. The priest shared some tidbits of Lawrence's life and went into some scriptures, and as soon as the words left his mouth, the cawing began. I can only describe what happened next as eerie. A sharp, icy cold wind whipped around our bodies as birds arrived in droves. Big black ravens, crows, big black birds were landing all over the place, and I'm not sure what they were, but they landed on the graves, on the grassy areas surrounding us, and sitting on headstones. It was like a scene out of the movie The Birds. My heart sank, and I knew what this meant, and I would never share this with the family. The cawing, screaming noises began and didn't end until the service was over. The birds, they quietly flew away. I watched Lawrence's mother being held as she said her last goodbye to her only boy. I couldn't be the one to tell her. He had not made peace with God. Yeah, it's dark. That's so dark. I know that there are several religions that believe that you can, bring people to the light after their demise. And simply by prayer, by ritual, by practice, that you can redeem a soul. It doesn't mean because their earthly time is over that there's no redemption. I don't know. I would like to think that that's possible because I think that the idea of making choices through this very temporary, this very fleeting moment we call life that will affect us for an eternity just doesn't seem like that's a good and just thing at all. It just seems like, I don't know, it seems like a robbery of sorts, or, it's like everybody screws up. Everybody makes stupid decisions. And what if that was your last decision before you left? And what if you didn't have another chance to redeem that? I mean, shouldn't it be possible to be able to redeem a soul after its passing? Shouldn't that be right and just that people could pray for that soul, or do rituals, or whatever practice isn't important, but that a soul could be redeemed after? And I think they can. I really believe that. I don't believe many people may embrace that, but I don't think it's nonetheless, I do believe it's true, because I think that if God is perfect, and I believe God is perfect, then he certainly wouldn't condemn us to an eternity based on being an idiot. We're all idiots. We are. We do stupid things. We say stupid things. We do dumb actions. We make split decisions based on an emotion, and then to say that has to be the torment forever, that doesn't seem right. And if it is, it shouldn't be. So, I don't know. I guess I hope that family was able to pray that child to redemption, because that's a horrible, horrible thing. Horrible thing. I know that there's lots of religions that do post-mortem baptisms, post-mortem deliverances. Take it or leave it. But it is out there. I mean, there are people that practice that, and some of the more bigger religions, believe it or not. So let's hope that boy made it to heaven, or whatever you want to call the next place, the good place. All right, so let's get into the next one. I hope I don't offend anybody by voicing those kind of things. That's certainly not my intent, but it's just me vocalizing those kind of ideas, because I don't know. I don't like this all or nothing kind of thing. It's like, we are infants, we're children, we're these blind babies, and God is this, the divine God, whatever you want to call it. It's not important. But it is the ultimate loving parent. And again, I said it a little bit last night, but I would never, of all the things that a child can do wrong, I can't imagine any of my children going, well, that's it, you're screwed. Screw you, you're screwed. I mean, I would love my children no matter what, and be there for them when they're ready. So I can't imagine I am greater than God. I don't believe that for a minute. But again, my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. That's what I think. All right, let's go to Florida and see what's going on there. I'm Kevin. I'm 27 years old and live in South Florida. My story begins many years ago and still has relevance to this day, which is why I've decided to write this. Maybe someone reading this will have an answer or advice. And here it goes. It all began as a child. I always had an elevated perception to things. I would have constant deja vu and dream unusual dreams, and my mom used to tell me we had a powerful spiritual connection to the supernatural. I guess I just could never believe something I had never personally experienced. When I was about 6, my cousin died of a rare disease. A year later, my grandmother died of cancer, and a few years later, my uncle committed suicide. I became aware of death and passing at a very young age, but it wasn't until the passing of my sister that the story truly begins. I was 12 and in 5th grade, and my sister and I were 4 years apart. She died in a car accident, and at the time, it was only my mom and I living in a small duplex, and she was a single parent supporting me, and I was alone most of the time. And I was devastated and depressed about my sister, and I often used to lie in her room. Her clock radio would often turn on when I would lie in her bed. And I would ask, "Is that you, Terry? Give me a sign." The clock radio would squeal at a high pitch. And I would like this. It gave me goosebumps, but I knew it was my sister. So I was happy. She would come to me in my dreams for a while, but that eventually stopped. As the morning progressed, the problem was, because of my awareness to the spiritual world, other entities took notice, and it was maybe 2 months after the death of my sister. I came home from school and made myself some lunch, sat down in front of the TV, and I felt a presence. I'd say it was an evil presence because it felt as if there was someone standing right behind me, breathing down my neck, and the goosebumps brought tears. I kept looking back, but no one was there, and I must have looked 20 times before I heard a deep voice. A deep, evil, dark, terrifying voice. It said my name. Only once, but that was all it took for me to be up and running out of the house as fast as I could. I was so terrified and sure of what I heard. I wouldn't come home for a week and a half. I stayed at my friend's house down the street, and my mom would never believe me. She would say, "It's in your head," but I knew what I had heard. I'm a skeptical person, and I don't believe unless witnessed firsthand, and this was. This was my first bad experience I had, and it seems subtle, and it was, but for a child, it was terrifying. I prayed and put my father's cross in my room, and this never happened there again. We moved from there not long after, and we received insurance money for my sister's death, so we moved 20 minutes away to a nice house in the suburb. And this house was where most of my occurrences eventually happened. For the next few years, I was fine. New friends, new life. Old wounds had healed, and I was a happy kid. Now I'm 16. My father was sick for a year, and it finally happened that my father died. Devastated and depressed was an understatement. I was mortified. I began to frequently fake my happiness. I had closed the door on the spiritual world years before, and because of the death of my father, I had questions. Big mistake. I began to use a toy store-bought Ouija board. My girlfriend and I decided to play around with it one night at her house, and I was trying to raise my father, and I got something, but it was not my father. I really didn't think it was going to work anyhow, and I was really very skeptical. It was answering questions, and it was being comical. Thinking it was my girlfriend messing around, I asked the spirit to give me a sign to know that this was real and that I did not believe. The piece stopped moving for a moment and then started back, slowly spelling out R-A-T. Then it was gone. I laughed, thinking how stupid. Several hours later that night, we were lying on her couch watching TV when we heard a crash. We turned on the lights, and in the kitchen there was a large rat on the counter. It was the first and last time I had ever even seen a rat. Okay, I was convinced, but scared. My mind was now open again, and again it was a huge mistake. I began to have dreams, vivid dreams of my father, my sister, grandmother, and uncle, and we were all driving in a convertible together, and they were telling me it was okay, that they loved me. And they said I would be okay, and I would understand one day. And I had a few other nice dreams like this, but the bad was coming. With my mind being opened and weakened by depression, I was being stalked by others. Halloween, my mother decided to throw a party at the house, and I had some friends over. And my other sister was in from out of town, and we confined ourselves to my bedroom. We were telling stories, and mine came up about the Ouija board. By coincidence, my sister's friend, who was much older than I, said he's a Wiccan, and he has a powerful Ouija board in his car if we wanted to use it. And we said, sure. After all, I knew the crappy ones worked. So let's see what this thing could do. He carried in a black case with golden clips, and inside was a solid black Ouija board with golden symbols. The moving piece was carved from ivory, and the window was crystal. We were using it and laughing when something happened. Something evil had taken control of the board, and it went from answering cute, easy questions and saying funny answers to dark, evil, and cruel answers. My friend's grandmother had passed, and when she asked, "Do you know my grandma?" it replied, "Yes." And she asked, "Could you get her?" And it replied, "No." And she said, "Why not? Do you know where she is?" And it said, "Yes." Where she asked, it replied, "Hell, suffering." The room became silent and she began to cry. The room felt eerie and cold. The dark presence could be felt by everyone, and we all had goosebumps. My sister's friend, who had the board, said he knew this was risky to do on Halloween and began to question the entity. He demanded its name, and it eventually replied that its name was Zam, Z-A-M. And he said he had to leave and that it was a very bad spirit and he had believed it to be a demon. He left in a flash and I never heard from him again. My room felt eerie for weeks, so bad that I refused to sleep in there for a while. A couple of weeks later, I came home from school and was home alone, and I was walking to my room down the hall when I passed my mom's room and I stopped. I just felt like I had to look in her room, and I stayed for a second staring at her bed, and when it happened, I heard the same voice that I had heard years before. It said my name again. Just like the last time, I became paralyzed for a moment. My eyes teared and I had goosebumps over my entire body. I felt pure fear and I left the house again. I kept asking myself, am I crazy? Did I experience this or am I hearing things? No, I did hear it, clear as day. This is only the start of my problems. Eventually, I started sleeping in my room again. One night I was lying on my bed and I had just gotten comfortable. The lights were off, but my eyes had adjusted and I could somewhat see. I felt a presence and it made me uncomfortable, and I kept looking around the room because I kept thinking I heard slight movement. Though maybe my dog was in the room, nope. I heard the dog bark in the other room earlier and my door was closed. I tried to ignore it and I closed my eyes. I began to feel something touching me, but it was not human. I felt electricity. It was cold. And it was moving up my knee, or my leg to my knee, and then stopped. I was in a panic, but didn't move. I thought, just stay still and it'll go away. Don't open your eyes. It didn't touch me for a moment, and then I felt a powerful zap to my leg, as if it punched me to wake me. I didn't respond, and it happened again. It got hit harder this time, higher up my leg, and I felt powerful. It felt powerful, and all I could do was feel electricity when it hit me, like getting zapped with a taser, and again I didn't respond. I laid there hoping it would go away. One last time it hit me in the chest like someone pushed me, but it was so hard that I opened my eyes and sat up to run, and just then I was thrown back onto my bed, and all I could feel was this tremendous weight on top of me, crushing my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream for help. I couldn't move. All I could feel was this heavy, cold electricity through my entire body. This lasted maybe 10 or 15 seconds, but felt like an eternity, and as soon as it came, it was gone. I jumped out of bed and ran out of my house screaming. I got on my knees on the yard and caught my breath. What just happened? Oh my God. My mom said, you just had another bad dream. Ha! I was awake the entire time. I wasn't even tired. This happened. If I was ever sure about anything in my life, it was this. This was only the beginning of my nightmare. Over the next couple of months, I became more and more depressed and withdrawn. I was constantly angry and hurting those around me, and I would seclude myself in my room in complete darkness and listen to music. I began to cut myself with razor blades, and I would cut my arms for no reason. I just felt like I had to. The pain felt soothing to my depression, and I began to experience blackouts for hours at a time, and I would hear stories of me doing things and being places that I had no memory of. My mom would ask me, "Who are you? Your eyes are not your eyes." My mom felt it would be best for me to get away for a bit, so I went to visit my sister in another state where things got even worse. My sister was terrified of me and would ask me, "What's wrong with you?" She said I would sleepwalk and talk in my sleep, saying horrible things. This would anger me greatly, and I would scream at her, and I left because of it. On the plane on the way home, I sat next to a man who had a usual interest in my life and my religion, and we spoke, and I eventually told him my story and why I had gone to Texas. And he tells me he's a pastor who travels the world doing missionary work and thinks it's important we meet when we get back home. I give him my number, not expecting to hear from him again, and a week later he calls me and wants to come and have dinner at my house. He asked to speak to my mom, so I gave her the phone and she made the plans. He came a few days later and he's not alone. He showed up with 2 other people from his church and he explained his religious beliefs and said there was a supernatural war between good and evil, and that just as God exists, so does his counterpart. He said just as angels exist, so do demons. He said that because of my weakened state from depression, my spiritual connection and using the Ouija boards, it leaves me open for a type of possession. He said demons couldn't control you like the movies portray, but they can enter your mind at its weakest moment and put thoughts such as cutting and the anger. And he says the blackouts were when it would block out my perception and attempts to take complete control, like a test drive. The pastor and his people did a ritual in my room and on me. It took about 45 minutes, and I didn't feel any different at first, but I stopped cutting, I stopped blacking out, and my depression grew less and less. Was it an exorcism? Was I possessed? I don't know, and I don't care, but whatever he did, it helped. My room felt a lot better to be in as well, and this concludes the worst part of my experiences, but it's certainly not the last. Since then, I've been fine, and I still have my deja vu. I still have enhanced perception, and I still have my vivid dreams. However, I refuse to use any type of connection device, such as a Ouija board, ever again, after all the pastor believed that that's how the demon found me in the first place. For years, I've been free of negative energy, and that is until the other night. I'm 27 now, and it's been 10 years since those experiences, but evil is still lurking in the shadows of my life, waiting for another opportunity. On Halloween this year, 3 nights ago, I went to a party I was invited to, and it was called a fetish party. I had heard of those, but I didn't understand exactly what it was. I've been enlightened. Picture this, an old movie theater converted into a club. Inside, the music was a combination of techno and death metal. The costumes were all bondage type, like from the horror movie Hellraiser. Black leather and tight black vinyl. People were dressed as demons and devils. People were wearing gas masks or dressed as priests, bearing inverted crosses. People were having sex, and others were standing on these steel brackets being whipped. There was a main stage with the show, and there was a man dressed as a demon dragging an unclothed woman around the stage with a chain around her neck, and then began to beat her and use toys on her. And another demon came out with the flamethrowers, shooting fire into the air, and yet another one bearing a large phallus that came, okay, all right, and they began to rub the blood onto their skin as if they were bathing. That's just gross. We left the club, and I have to admit, I'm an extreme person, and I actually enjoyed this place. Thoughts of going back again and again rushed into my mind. However, how different and unusual this place was, I went home thinking about what the next show might be. Okay. Oh, my God. The next morning, my mom sent me a text message asking me when I would be coming over, and I hit reply and said, "Be there in 15. Later in the day, I went to clear my outbox and noticed something both disturbing and frightening. The text I had sent my mother was actually sent to phone number 666. And this is how it looked on my phone. 2666, be there in 15. There's no possible way I typed that, nor did anyone else. Was this a warning or a message? I don't know, but I get it. A lot of this sounds pretty far out, and I don't expect everyone to believe it, but know this, whether you believe in the spirit world or not, it believes in you. Thanks for taking the time to read this." Well, that's just really creepy. I don't know. It sounds... So here's the thing with any kind of exorcism. If you really have a really very dark or demonic entity, an exorcism is not, in many cases, is not a one-time deal. There's nothing guaranteeing that it'll work for long or that it'll work at all. It may work for a period of time, and generally what happens, it seems, is that the rite of exorcism usually weakens a spirit, the negative spirit, a demon, negative spirit, whatever it is. It weakens it quite a bit so that it has to retreat. It may still have some part of a claim to that soul. I don't mean a claim as in it owns the soul, but just for the sake of terminology, we'll use that. But with an exorcism, you're dealing with a person doing a ritual. Now, as with anything, there are people like for instance, lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers out there. There's a lot of really fantastic lawyers, and there's a lot of bad lawyers. And there's a lot of bad lawyers that lose cases and cause problems, and they do maybe unethical things, and they are not probably who you're looking for, but you might end up with them anyway if you don't know the lawyer you're looking for. So in the terms of priests, holy people, shamans, whatever, you're dealing with whatever they are. You're dealing with a person that might have all kinds of skeletons in their closet. They might have all kinds of issues spiritually by themselves. The fact that they may wear a collar or have a title is not a guarantee that they are a quote-unquote pious person. And a rite such as exorcism requires a hell of a lot from the exorcist, whoever the exorcist is. It requires a hell of a lot from that person. And that's going to require spiritual clarity, spiritual intent, the ability to focus and to channel a hell of a lot of energy. And maybe the church doesn't call it channeling, but whatever. They are moving a hell of a lot of energy in order to purge an attachment. So the problem with an exorcist is you might be getting the lowest bidder, so to speak. You might be getting that ambulance chasing lawyer instead of the Wall Street lawyer that you're looking for, just to use that terminology. But and even then, even if it's a successful exorcism, it may be days, it may be months, it may be years, but there's no guarantee that whatever was causing the problem wouldn't come back or won't come back. And so it falls back then on the individual to make sure to change your ways. And go into a fetish club and getting all dark and sexy, I don't think is going to be probably the way that you want to reflect your life. Some of those, I mean, and here's the thing. I don't think sexuality is a meter of spiritual value. I don't. I think that, it's all about who you are as a person. But if you're into really sadistic and dark things, and you use that as your release or your practices in your libido, then you might be dealing with other things. You might be dealing with a little bit of a cloud. So take it or leave it. I don't know. My 2 cents. I'm no expert. I'm just an enthusiast. But just my thoughts on it. Be careful. Oh, well, that is what it is. But that was a long, good story, though. I like that story. That was really excellent. I hope you guys liked it, too. I realized it was pretty dark and kind of had a really grimy feel to it, but I hope that guy's okay. I hope that they remained possession free. That's all kinds of scary. Possession is no joke. Now that again, the topic of suicide came up a bunch tonight in tonight's stories, and I don't know. I don't pick out stories for the show. I don't read through and go, well, this one and then this one. I just have this whole pile of stories, and I just open some. And so the fact that suicide kept coming up, I just want to say, every time it comes up, I always say this: if you're in a dark place, if you're in a sad place, if you're hurting, if you need help, find some help. Don't take that choice. Don't do that. I mean, there's so much going on in the world, and there's so much desperation in the world, and it may seem like the only answer to stopping your pain, but there's just no answer like that. I mean, that's not an answer. And quite honestly, it's a torment that the living have to bear for the rest of their lives. The people that love you, and if you care at all about them, keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. Find people to talk to. Find help. Find Find someone to listen to you, or find a place where you can go and get the help you need. There's lots of nonprofits that would be happy to help you. There's hotlines. There's all kinds of resources, but just find someone to help you. Don't do that. Don't. There's an old meme that I like really well, and I bring it up from time to time when the subject of suicide comes up. It's like, we are infinite spiritual beings having a very temporary human experience. So while whatever's going on in your life may seem bigger than the world, just know that, we are still bigger than that. We are more than that. And our experience here is not the whole of our existence. It's just a small fraction of it. So don't rush to your own judgment on that. Just get the help. So I don't know. I'm putting it out there in case anybody needs to hear it. I do love you guys, and I know what it's like to hurt. I've been in about as much pain as I think it's possible to feel many times through my life, but you just keep going, one step. And when the big picture gets hard, focus on the little picture. Don't focus on the big picture, because the big picture is too hard. Just focus on your moments. Get through this moment, then get through the next one. And then when you feel a little stronger, maybe widen your scope a little bit and handle a little bit bigger stuff, and just do it as best you can, but find help. So enough of that. I love you guys. I hope you guys are having a wonderful night. Thank you all for being here with me throughout their journey tonight. I'm sorry if I got really preachy tonight. That's never my intention, but sometimes things just come up, and I don't know, I open my mouth and a lot of things come out. So I hope that's not offensive to anybody, but it's just me sharing my thoughts, give or take, or, if they're valuable to you, wonderful. If it's ridiculous, just discard it. I just want to help. So I love you guys. Have a wonderful night. I will be back tomorrow night for more of the Night Terrors, and then it'll be Wednesday, and Don will be here with me, and we'll get into the 2-hour Wednesday show. But I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Love you guys, and have a great night and sweet dreams.